As gamers, it's fair to say that we're always looking forward to brand new games, but one of the other things that I really enjoy is when companies start talking about their next consoles. As someone that likes tech and likes gaming, talking about brand new consoles is always incredibly exciting. It's why I spoke the other day about the recent Nintendo Switch rumours about the potential new models. If you guys haven't seen that, link it down below. But today we're talking about the PS5, and this is not a rumour. This is not one of those things where I caveat it by saying, hey, take this with a pinch of salt. This is an official article. There's a wide interview with Mark Cerny, who is the lead systems architect for the next generation PlayStation, and in that they speak a little bit about what their plans are for the future. They talk a little bit about the tech behind it. Obviously at this stage there are only a few things that we're talking about, but regardless, it's exciting. It's the beginning of the kind of marketing campaign, I guess you could say, the beginning of their communication about or surrounding their new system. So in this video, I'm going to go over all the most important information. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, and of course, if you haven't entered our giveaway for a chance to win a Nintendo Switch, a limited edition Super Smash Bros. One, then the link to that is in the description box down below. Now, where to begin? Well, again, as mentioned, this is an official article. It's actually been tweeted out by PlayStation, no less. They tweeted it out today, and keep in mind that this year is going to be a little bit different to how you would have typically kind of experienced news for things like PlayStation and whatnot, because they're not going to be at E3 this year. So, you know, your conventional format, your conventional framework for, say, console announcements in the past would have been, oh, you know, we'll wait till E3, Sony will have a big press conference, and then during that conference, they'll show like a massive trailer, they'll show what it looks like, they'll talk about the pricing plan. None of that is happening this year, at least not in the conventional means. Sony are not going to be at E3. It's going to be a completely different setup this year, so not entirely sure what their plans are, and given that they aren't going to be at E3, we don't know what they're doing beyond that point, for them to just drop this interview out of the blue is admittedly a little bit strange, but the information is appreciated regardless, so let's dive into that. Now, Mark Cerny, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard his name before. He's known for various different things, but in the context of this video, he was also the lead systems architect for the PS4, and he is doing that same job for the PS5. It's also worth calling out, they're not technically speaking saying PS5 right now, they are merely talking about the next generation of PlayStation consoles, but looking at the past and whatnot, I think it's fair to say we're probably going to end up with PS5. So, yeah. Now, when it comes to actually talking about the specs for the system, because that's basically what this is about, this is largely speaking a tech-focused interview. They said that, you know, when you expect a new generation, you obviously expect things like a new GPU, a new CPU, more memory, all that kind of stuff that is bigger, more powerful, just like upgrading a PC. Every time you get a new console, it's going to be more powerful to, you know, facilitate all the future games, to allow people to, you know, do bigger and better things, and the PS5 or the next generation PS console is going to do exactly that. To quote the article verbatim, it says that the CPU for the PS5 is based on the third generation of AMD's Ryzen line and contains 8 cores from the company's new 7nm Zen 2 microarchitecture. As for the GPU, it's said to be a custom variant of Radeon's Navi family. And the interesting thing worth calling out here is that they've specifically said that the GPU will also support ray tracing. Now, ray tracing in, you know, more simplistic terms is technology that allows light to mimic how it would behave in real life when it kind of bounces between different objects. But the interesting thing worth noting here is the way that Mark Cerny spoke about this outside the context of conventional lighting. Ray tracing is obviously, you know, used typically for that, but he said the applications go much broader than that. One of the examples he gave, he said that if you wanted to run tests to see if the player could hear certain audio sources, or if the enemy can hear the player's footsteps, ray tracing is useful for that. He said it's essentially all the same thing. It's essentially the same as tracking a ray through the environment. So, you know, while conventionally speaking, when you talk about ray tracing, you always think about the visual benefits. It's interesting to hear that, you know, you could then take that technology and apply it, you know, to something far greater to give you more accurate implementations for things like sound detection in games, which is pretty interesting. Obviously, he did actually make a note that when it comes to kind of audio in games, he said that, you know, going from PS3 to PS4, there weren't huge leaps. You know, there were obviously big leaps in visuals and graphics and, you know, the power of the system, but there weren't that many big leaps in terms of audio. So he said that is one of the things that they are trying to do with PS5. They want to make sure that it is truly a next generation system, both, you know, power, visually and whatnot, but also on the audio front. And to that end, he also said that the AMD chip also includes a custom unit that supports 3D audio. And the idea behind this is that you can then, you know, take advantage of this technology to feel more immersed in games. He kind of speaks more about like presence and actually feeling like you are in the world, and this 3D audio will definitely better facilitate that. However, outside of GPU and CPU and obviously audio stuff, it is also worth mentioning that one of the bigger bottlenecks for consoles is always hard drives. You know, as games get bigger, it takes a lot longer. The example they used was, of course, Red Dead Redemption, having like a whopping 99GB download, and obviously that means that when you want to go and load things in game, it takes kind of a long time. So they said that the next generation PlayStation console will include an SSD. Now, they didn't specify what SSD or who's manufacturing it. They did kind of keep those details a little bit vague at the point, but what they did do is, at the interview, they actually had a demonstration. Obviously, we don't have footage of this, but at the wide interview, they basically had two systems set up. They had Spider-Man running on the current PS4 Pro, and they initiated a fast travel sequence, and it basically took around 15 seconds to load from point A to point B. They then had a PS5 dev kit, and they then did the same thing, obviously keeping in mind that this new system has the SSD, and it did that exact same load in 0.8 seconds. So I think it's fair to say, I mean, if any of you guys have ever done any upgrades on, you know, putting an SSD in your PlayStation, you'll already know the loading benefits, but there are still bottlenecks with putting that into the system because there's obviously, you know, I/O stuff to consider as well. So the new system will be built with an SSD in mind, so you should get considerably faster loading times. And that also means not just when it comes to loading, but it also allows them to do more exciting things in game. So again, to use Spider-Man as an example, they spoke about the way that even when you've got all your skill trees upgraded and when you've got like all your abilities and you're swinging through the city, you can still only go so fast. The camera can only track you so fast because it still needs to load everything at the same time. But again, during the demonstration, they showed that if you did this on an SSD with the next generation system, it even allows for, you know, faster movement from the camera because obviously the system can then keep up. So lots of pretty exciting things on that front. And it's also worth calling out because you kind of probably gleaned that from the example, because this is going to be like a transitional console. They'll of course move over to the PS5 gradually. It will also be backwards compatible. So for the initial launch period, much like they did with PS3 and PS4, when you start out, games will launch on both PS4 and PS5 while they kind of transition. And then obviously, you know, after a few years or whatnot, they'll get to the point where it's just PS5 games. But it will be a backwards compatible system. So for anyone that does decide to pick up new games, you will still be able to dive back into your PS4 library. Something else they also mentioned, and this is super important because especially in light of a lot of the recent discussions about, you know, cloud gaming, online, and these kind of potential consoles that might just be download only, they did say it will still support physical media. They are not in a position right now yet to release a console that is just digital download. So yes, disc will still be a thing. Yes, you will still have physical media in the next system. So that's kind of it for the time being. That is essentially everything they went through. If you do want to read the entire interview for yourself, it is pretty interesting, then I will link it down below, but that is basically what they spoke about today. They were speaking about it more from a technical standpoint. There is no information on, you know, games, launch window, release date, anything like that. It is literally a technical conversation right now, but factoring in, as mentioned in the beginning, that they won't be at E3, I imagine we'll probably experience little beats like this throughout the year. I don't know whether, I don't know, maybe PlayStation are going to save it up until they're like PlayStation Experience at the end of the year. Maybe they'll make that a big song and dance. Honestly, I don't know when they plan to announce it, but I think it's fair to say if they're not going to be at E3, they'll probably do their own thing throughout the year, and they'll probably drop information at different times. Maybe we'll get videos, other interviews, perhaps, you know, this is like more of a tech-focused, architecture-based interview. Maybe they'll then have one later on talking about services. So it's fair to say we're in for some rather interesting information this year. Obviously, as we dive into E3 this year, we'll be hearing more about Microsoft's next foray into the next generation, so definitely excited to hear that. But safe to say, there's going to be lots of cool stuff to look forward to this year. It won't be coming out this year, to be clear. They did say that this won't be dropping in 2019, so I think, you know, a lot of us have been kind of speculating 2020 is potentially the new year for consoles, so there's still a fair way to go, so you can still get through this year's worth of games, but regardless, lots of stuff to look forward to. Anyway, that's it for the time being. Keep it locked. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about all of this. What would you like to see in the next generation console? Is there anything that you really want to see improved from the current system? Let me know down below. And of course, keep it locked because as and when we do find out more information, I will keep you guys bang up to date. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the Endgame store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the Endgame store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here. But once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.